Hello all, Chris here again, and today I'm going to be starting a new run. This time I'm going with Ori and the Wisps. It's a game by Moon Studios and it came out in 2020, so it's a pretty recent game. It's been a little while since I've played it, so just going to shake off the rust a little bit as I go through. And Ori and the Wisps is the continuation of Ori and the Blind Forest, which came out in 2015. It's a Metroidvania type game, which these are my types of games. These are the ones I really enjoy. So we'll see how I do in this game. And without further ado, it's time to get into it and just see how I do. So I'm going to be starting a new game. And since it's been a while, I'm going to go through on. I think I'm going to go on normal mode and just see how I do in there. And the game mode can't really be changed after you select it. So the main difference between them, well, obviously there's going to be the health and the damage that you take, but one really noticeable difference too is the escape sequences. If you played Ori and the Blind Forest, you're probably somewhat familiar with those. You're given a very, like, something's chasing after you, obviously, that's the name of that's why it's called an escape sequence. And you have to go through a very tight maze. Easy is obviously the easiest one. You're given a lot of extra time. The person chasing after you is going fairly slowly. They'll catch up just to kind of keep the flow of the game going. Normal is your standard experience. You can kind of make a little bit of a mistake on the way through. It's a bit less forgiving. Hard is essentially unforgiving at all. You can't make any escapes in that mistake sequence because pretty much like 0.5 seconds behind and you're done. So the first time I played through this, I started on hard mode and I could have gone through on that. It's just I made it all the way to the desert temple and I think I spent about over 3 hours trying to escape the sandworm there before I finally just gave up and switched to easy mode or to normal mode for that. So the game difficulty, the enemies aren't so bad, it's the escape sequences that really get you. So, you play as Ori in this game. You're essentially a light spirit, and at the close of the last game, you saved your little owl friend, which was the daughter of Kuru. So, this is taking place a few years later, so you're now living with Gumo and Ku and Naru. So the motion for this game is just really, really fluid. You can see that a lot of the landscape is somewhat made up of hills, and obviously there's some areas that you have to kind of come to a hard point to stop at, but for the most part, you're kind of just running through a nice, uneven, hilly area. Okay, so we are on the, like, our area is called Nibble, and they introduce us to Ku, who is essentially Ori's little sister. So, I know when this game came out, they also introduced the plushies, and the Ku plushie was just so cute. I got one for my niece, and I don't know if she still has it, but definitely a very cute little plushie. And I think that they had a Ori plushie when Ori and the Blind Forest came out. I don't really recall if they released one for when this game came out as well. I imagine they would because they're pretty cute, but I would actually have to look that up just to be sure. So the stones here have some things cut into them. You can see Ori, Naru, Gumo, and Ku. And the one behind it in the big stone there, that would be, I think that's Kuru. So now that they've kind of dragged Ku off, Ori is waking up, and we go and see just what they were doing. So we go out, and Naru is looking up at something, and they're trying to get Ku to fly. Even though she's kind of scared, we're all here for her. But there's a problem. You can see that the one wing is not quite... It doesn't really match the other one. they are giving her lots of encouragement, but one wing is just too badly damaged to fly. And I like how they have the little prologue here where they're all eating and Ku's looking around, and she's not really a fan of the fruits. So they have to figure out just what Ku likes. And what Ku likes is just over that way. So, some little grubs for Ku. Much different than the stuff that the others eat. And I like how Ku started off really small. She was able to be held by Ori. And now you can see that in just a short period of time, she's growing. You can see that Ku's almost the same size as Ori right now as the winter approaches. And starting to see where this game is going a bit. Ku's watching the other birds fly off and starting to realize that that's not going to be her. The sky called to her. But the one wing just was slightly damaged when she was born, so it's going to be a little bit difficult unless we can come up with something. Gumo and Naru birded too. So you can see that Ku is already a bit bigger than Ori right now. So she's trying to fly, and no, not quite yet. I love what they do with this game where there's not really... There is voice acting, but they're not actually speaking English subtitles, but the emotion of this game is presented through the body language and the eyes and the gestures. And somehow without dialogue, it's even more of an emotional game than some games that really try to be story-driven. So Ori goes to follow Ku and finds her watching the other birds at the sunset. Looking sad. It's a good game. Definitely one of the top ones on my list. They really are good at conveying the sorrow that comes throughout their lives. The answer lay in the past. So, we leave Ku on the docks where it's nice and safe, and Ori has an idea to go help Ku using an item that anybody that played the first game will be familiar with. Her mother's final gift. So you have to pull the lever down to open up the door, and once that's open you can go inside and then climb up. There's no stairs here because they don't use stairs. So the items that you throw out, some look like keystones and some look like the map stones. One looks like the map stone, and then we got Kuru's feather. So this item was just essential for the last game, where it just provided you the ability to glide. And I know it seems minor, but just this little thing made it so that so much of the world opened up to you. Many of Ori's abilities will do that. You got the double jump, you got bash, you got launch, you have grapple, charge, and because of that, the world just opens up just as much as Metroid would every time you get a new ability. So presenting the feather to Ku, and with a little bit of help, Ku might be able to fly soon. I like how in the distance you can see some areas that are pretty familiar to areas from the first game. And you'll see even more in the next sequence, where you have the frozen lands where you unlock the winds. You had the earth-based area that you unlocked a few abilities that really helped out the land when in the first game. So some areas definitely look familiar as you're passing through them. But then you enter a whole new world to explore the second area. So now that Ku has the wing, you can glide and you can also double jump. And we're ready to take off. Off we go, and there we go. Off Ku goes. The music really helps this game too. So Ori, who was not long ago holding Ku in his arms, is now just riding on Ku's back because Ku has gotten bigger than he is. And they're waving and encouraging them. It's a good little sequence. It has its very distinctive art style. You can really recognize in Moon Studios' game. I know they don't have a huge selection, but I hope that company does quite well in the future. After taking off with these games, they deserve it. So there's the Frostlands. You can see that there's a lot of sort of floating islands, and that was because of events that happened in the first game. And this area looks familiar too. Yeah, a good game. So we've left Nibble behind. And now we're entering new lands. So she's flying along with all the other birds. Yeah, a really good scene. But much like the first one, things aren't going to happen until some sort of chaotic events. And as we're entering the new lands, the storm begins. Who is flapping hard, trying to stay afloat. And the feather came loose. So without that, who's unable to control her flying? And we see that they become separated. So you can see areas in the distance that as you're progressing through this game, you saw the water wheel over in the distance there, separated by the storm. The story began. So much like the first game, you wake up alone, except now you're in search of a friend as well. And unlike the first game where you had a real feeling of isolation, in this game the world is much more populated. So these are the Moki. They have a similar appearance to Ori, and there was something screeching off in the background there that was awoken by our arrival. So Ori looks around and calls out. Even that little sound is cute. So we begin the game in the Inkwater Marsh. Now the prologue is skippable. You can see, if you watch any speedruns for this game, you can see that they're prone to doing that. But we're going to go through the game normally. So, small spirit container. There's a few things you can get on the way to the first event here. So you can duck down and get the spirit one, and you can also get another one here if you're careful and jump over the log. There's another spirit's orb there. Then once you touch the middle, it collapses, and you can't really go up here yet, but you can see that they have a barricade there set up, so that sort of blocks you. One achievement that it really helps to look out for is if you can avoid touching any of the water. Well, it says specifically the purple water, but just avoid the water in general until the point where you clear out the water mill. Then you're going to be ahead of the game. There's an achievement for that. So right now the area is not populated because it's a storm. There's not many people out, except for dangerous creatures. So we are on our way, and there's some Moki gathered around the fire. So we started off defenseless, but now that we have a torch, we can actually do something about the creatures here. In the first game, the only ability you had for attacking was your light orb friend. So he would shoot a few lasers, well, orbs of light at enemies. In this game, your weapon selection is improved greatly. So much like the first one, you have to go over the orbs until you get a specific item that will allow them to go towards you, and this is called Magnet. I think in the first one it was called Magnet as well. And here's our first person we can talk to. What are you now? Not a Moki, clearly. Not even from Niwen, are you? Have visited most lands, near and far, and not seen your kind. Come from across the waterway, maybe? So the area that we live in with Kuru and Gumo and Ku is called Niwen. This is Niwen. Well, whatever you are, I'm Talk, a wanderer in these parts. The better parts, at least. I'm taking shelter from that storm myself. But if you're thinking of going further, you'll have to get through that spirit gate over there. You'll need 2 keystones. I happen to have one in my bag, and there's another in the cave to the west. But acquiring it is a job for someone more nimble than myself. What do you say? Alright, we will get the keystone, because that's the only way to get through the door we saw just a moment ago. And avoid all the thorns there. One thing I really like about this game too is that the environmental effects that damage you also hurt the enemies as well. Oh, actually, we have to jump from here. So, what we need to get is the second keystone. So as you can see, the enemy there took damage from the thorns. So if you can knock enemies onto thorns or into water, it takes them out just as well. And down we go. So now we encounter our first enemy. These charging lizards. They essentially become enraged if you attack them. So once they do that, you can see that they kind of go on rage. And the good thing about the torch is that it does a fire effect on them as well. So even though you're not directly hitting them, they are taking damage from all the fire. So we unlocked another orb area, and now there's no way to keep the torch. You can't really climb up, so you have to jump through the water and see that your only weapon is now gone. But it has this mossy undergrowth here, and that allows you to climb around like Spider-Man. So there's an item that you get pretty soon that allows you to do that as well. Maybe not as much as the moss, because you can't really climb across the ceiling, but it allows you to climb across the walls and stick to them instead of constantly having to jump. So there's our first keystone, and now we return to Talk, and he's going to give us the second one. But we don't have any weapons now, so we avoid encountering any enemies, and back to Talk we go. No, don't hit the spikes. That was just a mistake there. I kind of hesitated in the jump. Ah, you're back. Is that a keystone I see? Here's one more for your trouble. I am ever a bird of my word. Now I can continue my wanderings through Niwell's lost wonders before we lose any more. And you can carry on with her, whatever it is you're doing. Good luck. Well, we're looking for our friend Ku. So now we have both keystones. And on we go. So we go back up to where the door is. There's nothing we can really do now. And it looks like we have somebody tracking us. So that big wolf is called Howl. So we have a little bit of trouble with him now, but then later on in the game, he somewhat disappears. You do encounter him a little bit later, just as a statue, so something takes him out along the way. Kind of like in Metroid, how you come across like Ridley little creatures and stuff in the final levels of Metroid that are completely drained of life. There's things in this game that petrify our adversaries. So this is actually a very simple battle. What I like doing is kind of hiding in the corner, waiting for him to come, and then getting 2 good strikes on. So you have to do that a few times to try and power away. And you can see that the Moki are watching. They're in the background there. And we drove away howling, so all bark and no bite. Although, you know that he would have liked to finish us off. So now, we don't have any fire, we don't have any defense, And it looks like Howl did quite a bit of damage as he was escaping. So we continue on. And always check any areas that look a little bit suspicious. So you can kind of see here how it looks like the wall doesn't quite meet up evenly. So there's going to be a lot of areas with hidden walls. You eventually get an ability that allows you to see anything that's hidden. Oops. But that's not till later in the game. So it's basically at the item collection phase. And that's not for a while. Alright. So we follow the Moki. And now we come across our first spirit tree. So these are much like the Chozo statues you would see in Metroid or in Guacamelee, if you've ever played that. They hold our power-ups. And the first one here is the Spirit Blade. So it's a much better weapon than the orb that you would get in the first one. I think in the first game, Ori was really just a child. In this, you're essentially in your teenage years or something. So you're much more capable as far as being a fighter. And the Spirit Blade itself offers a lot more options as far as attacking. As an ancient light awakens. Naru. So it kind of sounds like they're saying the names right, but the rest of the dialogue doesn't sound like English. So I did recognize the voice actor Gumo and Naru sounded like they were saying that, but the rest of the words were just not recognizable. And the two adults are looking for us now, and they see that the birds were flying in a direction, so maybe they think we've made it all the way over there. And we have. So Ori awakens now with the power from the spirit tree. The Moki have all gathered around and are looking at him in wonder. You are not like the others, the Shrieker, the Howler. In you shines an ancient light. The tree remembered, it knowed, it glowed. It has shared its memory with you. You've gained a new ability, so what I like doing is setting the Spirit Blade, or eventually the Spirit Hammer to X, because that becomes my main attack. And now use the light we want to see. So they'll be watching from the distance, but you can do a downward thrust, you can do an upward thrust, and just hit the button does a 4-strike combo. Or 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5. And holding down does a thrust. Jumping down does a downward thrust. So now that we have a weapon, we can get through these. And when you come across any enemies that look like they're about to attack, especially small ones, you can do an upward thrust, and that stops them from attacking, it interrupts them. So never be afraid to use that. There's a lot more here that can essentially make Ori airborne. So yeah, the problem with the beginning is that the spirit orbs don't fly to you, but you can actually, you're coming up on an item that will change that. Kind of having fun with this poor guy. So he doesn't stand a chance against Ori. Alright, so this is the magnet. These items here are essentially your accessories. So Magnet's one that I essentially always have equipped, and you'll see why in a minute. Any orbs that you come across will now fly directly to you. Yep, so the orbs that would normally I'd have to go pick up off the ground now come right to me. And in the accessories, you can sort of notice that you see the circle around. If it's broken up, then each one is essentially a level. So the magnet has 2 levels. You can see kind of how the middle is broken. Future ones may have 2, may have 3, may have 4 different levels. So you can upgrade as much as 3 times for some of them. And there's others that have the ability all set to go right from the get-go. Alright, so now we see the Moki. The light listens to you. You must be a spirit after all. We Moki thought all the spirits had gone from Niwen. So long, spirits, gone away. You seek someone. We know a finder. The great one. Great and mossy. Go to the guardian of the marsh. Qualic will help you find your way. Alright, so our first real goal is to go to Qualic. And we get 200 spirit light for that. But that is essentially the prologue for the game. So, I think I'm going to end it there for the time being. And I'm going to continue on soon. But I think that's a good introduction to Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Covered the prologue, talked about the last game a little bit. And thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. And I'll have the next video up soon. So, till then, have a good day. Bye.